Welcome back to the channel. Before I start, I want to explain kind of why it took so long. I started in March, and besides being tied up in some family stuff, it was a lot of research and trial and error, trying to make things fit, fixing my problems, and second, it was a lot of trips to the junkyard, which were short-lived because the Arizona heat is pretty brutal. I get sunburned pretty easy. Ran out of water a lot of what I brought, and I would bring like 6-7 bottles and just run out. So that's kind of why it took me so long to get this video done. I got this idea from some Subaru forums that would discuss how to lift their Subaru with Impreza, WRX, and Forester suspension pieces. But other than that, let's get started. Alright, so in this video I'm going to be lifting the Elantra. I just replaced this suspension probably about 6 months ago, and in the back it's already sagging a lot, as you can tell. And then I'll show you that it's like the rear springs are just shot. And you can see right here where I've been hitting, exiting my driveway and over speed bumps and stuff. So I'm going to start with some before measurements. In the front, I have about 8 inches of clearance, 7.5. And in the back, is about the same, even though the back is a lot lower than the front. Alright, so I got the old spring out, and this is the Jeep spring. I might be asking for a little bit of a bigger lift than I asked for, but we'll see. Alright, so what I have here is the rear struts, or shocks, off of a 2009 Ford Flex. Alright, so here they are side by side. You can see the strut top or shock top sits right here, and the shock top will sit right here, and it'll give me an extra just about 2.25 inches of droop, and it will give me an extra 2.25 inches of travel, because that's just the way the travel works out. Alright, so now I have the rear suspension off. All I have to do is unbolt this bolt, disconnect these two up here, and then unbolt this one, and possibly unbolt that green one to get the spring out. After that, I have to disassemble the top of this to put on the other strut. In order for this shock mount to work, I have to drill this out just a little bit so it'll fit on top of here, because as you can see, it doesn't fit. So here, as you can see, I drilled it out a little bit, just a little bit, so now it fits right there. And here it is with the rears having the Jeep Patriot spring and the Ford Flex rear strut. Alright, so the reason I can't go any higher in the front or in the back is this is my brake line. I mean, right now I got plenty of play, but that's at full droop, and I don't want to risk it anymore. So until I can figure out the extended brake lines or something, it's about as high it's going to go in the back. So for the front, I decided to do a 1-inch strut spacer using this 1-inch cutting board I bought on Amazon for like 30 bucks. And you can see about how big it is. I think it's like 12 by 24 or something like that. And I just traced the strut mount onto there. I'm going to cut it out, drill out the holes, get longer bolts. Okay, so here's my plan for the front. Take the stock strut, use a spring off of a '06, I believe, Kia Sportage. I have to take the spring rest for it and drill a hole so it'll fit over the stock top hat. Knocked out the studs so I can put longer bolts and a 1-inch cutting board spacer in there. So as you can see, the bolts or the nuts sit inside the spacer, and once I tighten it down, the spacer will be clamped down to where that bump is. With the magic of spring compressors, the Kia Sportage spring is in with the longer bolts, and you can kind of see where I cut in over there and up here. Alright, here it is, all buttoned up. You can see the 1-inch strut spacer up there. I'll see you on the ground. Alright, so here is the lift with the OEM tires. I wanted to do some measurements, that way you guys could see how much I lifted it without the tires. Those ones. These are actually off of a 2011 Jeep Patriot. Same center bore, same bolt pattern, just bigger. And the measurements with the OEM wheels is about, I want to say 9.5, 10 inches. Probably 9.5. And then the back is about 9 inches. Alright, so here's the final product with the new wheels, and the height in the front is roughly 11 inches. The clearance in the back is roughly 10.5. One thing I forgot to mention is that the rim right inside here just barely touches the brake caliper, so I did have to install a 5mm spacer in the front. The rear, I'm good. I did have to massage the pinch welds there a little bit with a sledgehammer, but now there's definitely no rubbing. Obviously it didn't go as smoothly as planned. One of the issues that I ran into was tire rubbing on the pinch welds, just on the pinch welds. Then initially I thought I could use both the rear springs and shocks from the Jeep Patriot, but I didn't realize that my rear struts were fork type and not knuckle type at the bottom like the Jeep. In the front I wanted to do the, I believe, Hyundai Santa Fe front struts and springs, but they were too long and I couldn't get them compressed enough to fit, which is good because the axles were starting to bind up on the lower control arms, and I ended up going with the stock strut because the wheel spacers just kind of pushed the front struts out just enough to clear the wheel or spring perch. At first I had found some aftermarket suspension components that I wanted to use, but after some real thinking I wanted to stick with as much OEM stuff as I could, so that either I could easily go get it from a parts store or the junkyard, it would just be from a different car. How I chose the Jeep Patriot wheels was I googled my bolt pattern and center bore, which is 5 by 114.3, and with the center bore being 67.1, and there was a website that gave me a list of the different cars, including Mitsubishi Lancer, I think it was some Ferraris and stuff like that, that would have that same bolt pattern, but I also had to go off of like the offset and how big the tire would be and everything like that. And based on some calculations that I did, the Jeep wheels would have been the best for my application. The wheels that I got off the Jeep were slightly wider, which also gave it a little bit more height for the ratio, which is why I ran into clearance issues with the spring perch, and why the spacers just kind of fixed what I was dealing with. I test drove the wheels before the lift to get a feeling of where my trouble areas would be when my suspension is compressed and turning and stuff like that. So, which is surprisingly not that much. Finally, I'm going to break down the cost of what it cost me to do the lift and all 5 wheels, because I got a full-size spare. The wheels were a total of $90 with the tires. The springs cost me $102. The struts, or the shocks, cost me $28. The wheel spacers cost me $35. And then the strut spacer cutting board cost me roughly $30, but I also have plenty left to work with if I need to make more spacers. And then the longer bolts for those spacers cost me $8. The grand total came out to $293, and for under $300 for wheels and a lift, that's not bad. So, some unfortunate news. The day that I finished filming this video, I got into an accident with a red light runner. The Elantra is totaled, so that project is not canceled, but postponed until I can get another Elantra. I do have another project that I've been keeping on the side until I got further along with the Elantra, so now that's going to be moved up sooner than I anticipated, so keep an eye out for that. As always, thank you for watching.